Joining me this week is former No Limits wrestling champion and Kildare native, the Beast, Danny Butler. Danny, thanks for joining us this afternoon.
Cheers, thanks for having me.
So you've been wrestling now since 2003 is when you had your first matches, is that it? Or
if you say so.
from your recollection. So what influenced you to first become a professional wrestler?
Well, I was big into wrestling when I was a smaller kid, like most people are. And I kind of got to the stage then when I was, I don't know, second or third class in school, when everyone was talking about it was fake and this was fake and they used red sauce for blood and all this kind of thing, and that whole idea kind of threw me off it for a little while. And I remember back then the Ultimate Warrior seemed to disappear off the scene for a little while, and he was one of my favourites, and it kind of I just stopped watching it for years and years until, well, what felt like years and years. When you're younger, you know, time passes so quick.
Yeah.
And so then when we got to the end of primary school, start of secondary school, the whole Attitude Era thing kicked off, and next thing everybody was talking about wrestling again. Wrestling was really cool, and I was on the fence about it. While I was big into like martial arts and kung fu kind of films and stuff like that, I always kind of had a bit of a thing against the wrestling still, you know, because it let me down maybe when I was younger.
Yeah.
But then when it came to eventually all the lads in school and all were saying, oh, should stick it on, give it a watch, you'll be surprised, you might like it. And I remember my older brother was kind of getting back into it as well, and he stuck it on the telly one day, and I remember just loving it straight away. And it was the big build up to WrestleMania, the first time The Rock and Austin went at it, so it was shortly before. That would have been the big pay-per-view that year.
Yeah.
Like. So there's a good bit of stuff running down, like, and it just sucked me in, that whole buzz about it, you know.
That's pretty cool. So you've wrestled now for many different promotions, both in Ireland and a few in the UK as well. What's it been like to wrestle across all these different promotions, both as a singles and a tag team wrestler?
Well, most of the time, like, it's pretty straightforward. Like, you know, I just kind of get to these places, and if I'm booked on a show or booked in a match or booked to do whatever, like, I'll turn up, kind of get there to do my job. A lot of the time it's, especially in Ireland and around the UK, it's a lot of the, like, I would have seen wrestlers work before, or I might have wrestled with them or trained with them or that kind of thing. So a lot of the time you get to places and you see a lot of familiar faces, so you might as well be in the same, you know. It's
pretty cool. Now you wrestle under the name, obviously, Danny the Beast Butler. So where did the Beast nickname come from in your persona?
Well, I hadn't got a tagline or anything like that for a long time. I was just Danny Butler, and Jamie Coleman promotes No Limit Wrestling.
Okay.
Just started calling me the Beast because he used to do the ring announcer on the show, and I think I won a match one time and he got a bit carried away with the big, and your winner is Danny the Beast, and it just came out of him kind of naturally. So then he just started doing it when I was working his shows, and when I won the No Limits wrestling belt then, Jamie posted on the internet, new champion Danny the Beast Butler, and I seen it written down and I thought, yeah, it kind of fits, so I just ran with it. Even though the Beast is kind of an overdone thing, it's a fairly obvious name, but at the same time I'm a fairly obvious in your face kind of wrestler. So
it's amazing though, because like I heard that Shawn Michaels, the Heartbreak Kid, came from Kurt Hennig, who was in commentary at the time. He said something similar, like it's the Heartbreak Kid, and so it's a very similar way of how you got your name. So it seems like the better nicknames come from that. Like,
yeah, but that way. Like most things in wrestling, like the more natural things seem to come across. Like if somebody's working too hard to try and make something like a gimmick stand out and be this cool new thing, a lot of the time it just falls to shit because you know, maybe they're just trying too hard. But the more natural kind of personas, or you know, things that attract you more naturally, it's easier to project that to other people than when they're watching the show, you know.
Yeah. So what other wrestlers or people have influenced any part of your character at the moment, past or present?
I suppose like that I kind of like to work a more kind of stiff / strong style in the ring, like, so I'm more of a big throws, heavy shots kind of a lad. I don't be doing much fancy stuff, like, so really most wrestlers like that attract me. While I do really like technical wrestling and getting on the mat with lads and rolling around and stuff like that, it's always kind of that hard hitting. Those wrestlers always really stood out to me. Like I said, when I got back into it, they're the lads that caught my eye. Like I really liked, even if they weren't the biggest stars, like, you know, lads like Ron Simmons, Dave Finlay, those kind of, you know, lads that kind of came across as no nonsense. They were just there to beat the piss out of the other lad they were fighting. Like, I always liked that kind of thing.
Very
you know?
rough tumble sort of guys, like, you know. So
yeah, well, like that. If that's how I kind of look at wrestling. If someone says you're getting into a match and you're going to fight this fella, I don't. While there is a place for it, obviously, I don't. My obvious thought is I'm going to go in, I'm going to beat the shit out of him. Like, I'm not going to be nice about it. So, like, I'm not going to really go out dancing around the ring or doing anything like that. I'll be a bit more well, I will get the crowd behind me and, you know, get the few chants going and stuff like that to build the atmosphere, but I'm not going to be, you know.
Okay. So you obviously have trained down in the Fight Factory down in Bray. What do you feel you've learned the most, more than anything, from training down there?
It's hard work. I suppose, like a lot of people, I looked at wrestling and I thought it was going to be a thing we all did, or at least a lot of wrestlers, they won't like to admit it, but they all started in a backyard somewhere or on a couch in the sitting room or something. You know, after watching Raw, and they got the buzz about it and they tried something with their friends. And you get the idea that once you're able to lift a lad up and do a suplex or, you know, pull a few punches, you're going to get in the ring and you're going to have a decent match. And that's bullshit. Like, you know, it takes a lot of time, at least for me and the majority of people, it takes a lot of time to get things right and to drill them and do them over and over and over again. That's when I started. It was NWA Ireland at the time. I don't think I missed a wrestling class Wednesday and Sunday for about 5 or 6 years. I was there every week, and that was just to do that, to just learn every week and keep on. Even if I learned it last week, do it again and do it again, and eventually you don't think about doing it. So when it comes to doing something simple like a wrist lock or a headlock in the ring, you don't think about it. It just comes natural, like, you know. Okay,
that's a very positive attitude to take towards it. You know, a few weeks ago we had Justin Shape here on the show, like, and he told us that you two have known each other since primary school.
Yeah.
So, and you guys have obviously been together as a tag team and been opponents as well. So, how would you describe the chemistry between the two of you, both as opponents and as tag team partners over the years?
Well, again, when I got back into wrestling when I was a younger teenager, he would have been one of those lads in my class or one of the group that I hung around with that would have been always into wrestling. He knows so much about wrestling, it's fucked up. Like, small things, like, not even, it's kind of hard to explain some of the things. Like, he looks at wrestling from a fan's point of view a lot of the time, even when he's in the ring. And he's always thinking about how things will look and come across. And that's a really cool thing to know how to do. Like. And to an extent, now he has worked at that, obviously, but to an extent he's always had a good wrestling head on his shoulders. So when I was getting back into wrestling, he was always the lad I'd be asking questions about. Like, I hadn't seen WrestleMania the year before, so I didn't know Bret Hart had only jumped ship and gone to WCW and all this stuff. And when people started talking about that, I was clueless. So he'd be my...
So we had to fit it in, so to speak.
What the fuck? What happened there? Blah, blah, blah. And there was a few lads like that, you know, and they caught me up to speed with all different things and what was going on. And then I started, obviously, once I got big into the wrestling, I was watching it 24/7. I was ordering tapes off the internet. We used to order tapes, then get 2 VCRs, do that whole thing of hold the record and play and, like, duplicate the tapes, and we'd be passing them around, like old Raws and Smackdowns and stuff like that, tapes we were ordering on the internet. Things like that. So at that time it was a lot harder to find the stuff, but at the same time everything I found I kind of stuck to, and I really liked that. Was trying to steal bits that I liked or that I thought would suit me. Again, more so the wrestlers, I would have liked those no nonsense lads. I tried to take a lot of their stuff, or maybe the way they might do something, and then keep it for myself, you know.
And who else, when you became a wrestler, then who else, like Bar Justy, were your favourites to be in the ring with, and why? Like, do you prefer someone who would be maybe the opposite to your style, or does it make much of a difference?
Well, I suppose, like, that's the beauty of wrestling is most wrestlers can just get in there with any other wrestler, at least the good ones, or who like to think they're good ones, can get into the ring with whoever and put on a decent match. So in that way, I don't think like big, small, whatever makes much of a difference. But again, chemistry with lads, a lot of the time you can get in the ring with someone and they could be a great wrestler and things might not click and the match will be okay and it will be good, but it won't stand out as being your favourites. There is some lads like I really like working with. Justy's always a good laugh either way, tag team or if we ended up doing like, you know, all these hardcore main event matches and beating the shit out of each other a whole lot.
Okay.
But that's always like, yeah, it hurts and whatever, but it's good fun, like, and especially like that when you're getting in with a lad that you can trust. Yeah. That he's not going to take it too far, or that he'll always take it far enough. More importantly, that he's not going to leave it short, like, you know. Yeah,
I wouldn't leave it like it's to a degree, but not just like such a degree.
Yeah.
Like, so.
And then there's other lads. Like my favourites probably, I've worked with Maxer a lot. He's very good. Sean Brennan, Paddy Morrow is probably my favourite. Paddy's just, well, maybe with him it is a thing that he is so small. You can just ragdoll him around the ring. He always sells, makes everything look really good. Like, so. You know, I'd always be confident getting in the ring with Paddy that, you know, I can get in and beat the shit out of him and he's going to always bring it back, you know. And he'll always get the crowd behind him because he's that charismatic. He knows how to work a room, like.
It's pretty cool. So obviously you mentioned you're a former No Limits wrestling champion, but this is back in the days when No Limits were touring around Europe and just coming into
well, No Limits was mainly touring around Ireland. There's a few kind of extensions to it where they ran a few different promotional things. The big European tours I wasn't really a part of. Again, I kind of dipped out of wrestling. Not that I dipped out of wrestling, but I got involved with music and playing in bands and things like that.
Cool.
So I took a few years there where I was rehearsing most days and drinking every other day. That kind of thing. So I hadn't really got time to do wrestling. I wasn't picking up a lot of bookings. Like,
well, at the time when you were around the wrestling, what else would you consider the highlights of your career?
Obviously any time you win a belt is a nice thing to do, like, you know, kind of shows that you've put in the work and that you've something to show for it. So the 3 tag team runs with Justy, with Team Mega, with the Irish titles, I always liked having them belts. The No Limits belt I won off Paul Tracy. That was a nice nice one to have. I held on to it for a good while. And just kind of the big highlights really are getting to go out and do these shows and meet different wrestlers. And you know, you get to meet all these cool people that are all into the same thing. They're all there to put on a show. And even when you meet people that are vastly experienced, most of them have that same mindset, like, you know, that they just want to go in there and have a decent match and put on a good show and make sure everyone leaves happy. And that kind of thing, you know, the camaraderie with everybody else is a big kind of, you know.
Absolutely. Now, you mentioned earlier on that as when you were growing up, one of your favourite wrestlers was the Ultimate Warrior. Both as a fan and a wrestler, who do you consider your favourite wrestlers even nowadays, or other wrestlers when you were growing up?
I'd imagine everyone you've asked that question has probably said Finn Balor straight away.
Actually, you'd be surprised. No one actually has so far that I can think of anyway.
All right, so I'd say that.
No, sorry, Jordan mentions that. Actually, Jordan was on 2 weeks ago. He was like Finn Balor. He's known to
again. Fergal is one of the lads that trained me, himself and Paul. Like, you know, so obviously I've seen loads of his work. I've been in the ring with him a good few times, stuff like that. He's a genius in the ring. He works harder than anybody else. But again, there's loads of lads there, like, especially WWE, New Japan and places like that, that are top drawer, like, you know, that are really good. Aside from him, Adrian Neville, Pac, like, he's really good. His movement in the ring is second to none. Like, he flies really well, hits really hard, looks the balls, like, he's the whole package. Like Cesaro, again, one of those rough, beat the shit out of your wrestlers. I like, you know, the big shots. Jason Jordan, NXT, again, his big throws, you know, suplexes, throwing lads around the ring. I really like that style of stuff. So.
Yeah, they've moved on now to SmackDown and the draft now. So,
oh right.
So
again, I'm not really up to date. I don't watch it. I've been watching the Cruiserweight Classic recently. Apart from that,
you can't go wrong there. So, no, by all means. So, do you have any short-term or long-term goals now that you'd like to accomplish in your wrestling career?
I suppose the goals are always the same. Trying to get out and expose myself and get more matches, learn a bit more. Mm-hmm. Trying to get more of a buzz about me and about whichever shows I'm involved in, whether it be a small show here or a big show there. Mm-hmm. Just get stuck in and do the shows, and hopefully I'd like the Irish wrestling scene to obviously kick off and get more notice, which it seems to be building at the minute.
Absolutely, yeah.
But I don't know, like, you know, if Triple H gives me a call.
You never say never. Finally, I must ask you, now, as I said, you've been wrestling for about 13 years or so. If you had to pick any wrestler, living or dead, to have a match with, call it your dream match, who would it be and why? And bear in mind, you can have a few options here, like, it doesn't have to be one.
Who? I suppose, again, like, you know, if not so much about who it is, circumstances can always be a big thing. You know, if you're in the ring with a lad that can work right in the right environment, you're going to have a good match regardless of the scenario. But obviously you want to get in there with, I don't know, like, you know, again for me it'd be someone I can get in, I can rough him around, let him get some of his stuff in. Maybe like Eddie Guerrero or somebody like that you know is always going to, you know, make you look good.
It adapts either way, like, you know, so that's pretty cool. So you can catch Danny Butler. Danny Butler may or may not, I'm not ruining anything, may or may not be at OTT this Saturday for the Invasion Super Show. It's taking place in Tivoli Theatre, Dublin. All tickets are sold out. Danny, it's been awesome having you here. All the best and more in the rest of your career, and we hope to talk to you soon. So thank you very much.
Cheers, man. Thanks.
You're welcome.